Players Association responded with a counter proposal, and at the end of the day, it was one big spit in the owner's face. After grandstanding, after wasting time, after stalling for the last 2.5 months, the players finally...
The Collective Bargaining Agreement, CBA, negotiations between the Women's National Basketball Association, WNBA, and the WNBA Players Association, WNBPA, have reached a critical and volatile juncture. What began as a routine renegotiation of the league's economic model has devolved into a high-stakes standoff, punctuated by accusations of bad faith, financial obfuscation, and a timeline so compressed that it now threatens to delay the tip-off of the 2025.
WNBA Players Association submitted a counter-proposal to the WNBA this afternoon. Sources said they made concessions on revenue share percentage and on housing. Now, people first saw this news before the details came out and said, oh, wow. Oh, maybe we're making some, maybe this is some real, maybe they really made some big concessions here.
Season. At the heart of the conflict lies a fundamental disagreement over the league's financial health, the fair distribution of its burgeoning revenues, and the very definition of a sustainable economic partnership. After months of public posturing and private deliberations, a single event crystallized the widening chasm between the two sides: the WNBPA's submission of a long-awaited counterproposal on February 16th. Far from being a breakthrough, this proposal was met with immediate and forceful rejection from the league owners, who characterized it not as a step toward compromise, but as a direct provocation, a gesture that one commentator described as a spit in the owner's face. This article provides an in-depth analysis of the current crisis.
This new proposal seeks an average of 27.5 gross revenue over the course of the new CBA, including 25% and a slightly greater than 9.5 million cap in year one. On housing, it proposed a phase-out system where teams wouldn't have to provide housing for highly paid players. Before we get into the article,
dissecting the specifics of the proposals, the underlying financial disputes, the strategic miscalculations, and the existential questions that will determine the future of the league. For 2.5 months, the negotiation table sat largely silent. Following the league's submission of a formal proposal around the Christmas holiday, the WNBPA took a prolonged period of 10 weeks to formulate its response. When that response finally arrived on February 16th, the initial public reaction
to get their housing paid for the first few years. Conveniently left off here. The Players Association new proposal seeks an average of 27.5 gross revenue over the course of the new CBA. Now, this is terrible. This is not going to get agreed upon. But the biggest problem is that this is coming February 16th and not December 16th. This is coming February heading into March and not December going.
Based on headlines alone, suggested a potential thaw. The players had moved on key numbers. They had made concessions. Perhaps, after months of deadlock, a middle ground was finally within sight. However, a granular examination of the proposal's details reveals a far more complex and contentious reality. The cornerstone of any professional sports CBA is the split of revenue between the league, owners, and the players. It is the primary economic engine of the partnership. The WNBPA's new proposal sought an average of 27.5% of total league revenue over the life of the new agreement, beginning at 25% in year one. On the surface, this is
doing nothing but raising the max salary from a reported $800,000 to now $1.3 million. Raising the median salary from around $440,000 to now a little bit over $500,000. So the owners have been making their concessions. The players haven't been making any until now, where it actually
This represented a concession from their previous, more aggressive demands. But context is everything. The league's last formal proposal included a revenue-sharing model that, after deducting specific operational expenses, resulted in players receiving less than 15% of total league revenue in the first year. This is the benchmark against which the players' move must be measured. To illustrate the gap, one must look at the corresponding salary cap figures. The salary cap is the financial mechanism through which revenue share is translated into player payrolls. the owner's proposal significantly increased the salary cap, raising it from $1.5 million in the previous season to a proposed $5.65 million in year one of the new deal. This is a monumental increase of over 275%, a clear signal from the owners of their
article by Annie Costable. WNBA seeks 25% of league revenue in counter proposal. The Players Association is asking for an average of 27.5% of total league revenue over the life of the proposed deal, in addition to team-provided housing for all players in the first several years. So they want to phase it out, but over the first several years, can you still pay for our housing? Over the first few years, can you still pay for us? No, you guys are making millions. Why would I pay for that? No, you guys are making $250,000.
Intent to substantially boost player compensation. In their counter, the players proposed a salary cap of $9.5 million in year one. While this was a reduction from their earlier demand of $10.5 million, the optics of the negotiation are stark. The owners moved the cap figure by over $4 million. The players moved their figure by $1 million. From the owner's perspective, this is not a good faith negotiation. It is a perfunctory concession that still leaves an unbridgeable $3.85 million chasm between the.
What are you guys going to do then? Are you going to take the $400,000 that they're scraping you? Or are you going to take the $1.3 million that Adam Silver's forcing them to give up? The WNBA's last proposal, shared 6 weeks after one submitted by the union around Christmas, included a revenue sharing system that deducts certain expenses, resulting in less than 15% of total league revenue shared with players in the first year of the deal.
Two sides in the very first year of the deal. Beyond the macroeconomics of revenue share and the salary cap, the negotiation over player housing has emerged as a symbolic battleground, exposing a fundamental disconnect in how each side views the player-employer relationship. The WNBA's proposal included a demand for team-provided housing for all players for the first several years of the new CBA. This would be followed by a gradual phase-out system, where players on lucrative multi-year contracts would eventually become responsible for their own living arrangements. The league's reaction to this proposal was one of bewilderment. The owners had already agreed, in principle, to a phase-out.
Glad we are all on the same page here. The exact length of the union's latest proposal is unclear, but multiple sources have indicated it's a 5 to 6 year term. The team-provided housing would be phased out in the later years of the proposal for players signed to more lucrative multi-year contracts that include salary protections. Moves have been made on non-economic issues, including agreeing to a pregnant player trade consent clause, something that the owners put forth, limiting marijuana testing, the codification of charter travel, and increases to performance bonuses. The league has also proposed higher 401k contributions, a recognition payment for retirees, and team staffing requirements. However, it's unclear whether the union will pursue more
of the housing provision. The players' counter, in essence, agreed to a concept that was already on the table. The critical addition, however, was the timeline and the income thresholds. The players' proposal would require teams to continue subsidizing housing for players who are, under the league's own proposed compensation structure, earning salaries that place them among the highest-paid athletes in women's sports. The owner's offer includes a max salary that surpasses $1.2 million in year one. From a business perspective, the logic of a team paying for the apartment of a millionaire employee is, at best, untenable. The players' argument likely centers on parity and team cohesion.
Shout out to all my veterans. I appreciate all that you guys do. And active service. Appreciate you guys. Let me sit up here and talk shit. Now, ESPN's Alexa Philippou, she reports, amid the now 16-month negotiation, the league has continually emphasized the importance of.
They argue that ensuring all players have their housing covered, regardless of salary, eliminates a potential source of division within the locker room and allows players to focus entirely on basketball. However, the owners see it as a fiscal absurdity. The core question becomes, at what income level does a professional athlete cease to need a housing stipend? For the owners, that threshold is crossed well below the $1 million mark. For the players, it seems the expectation of employer-provided housing persists regardless of personal wealth, at least for a transitional period. This disagreement, while seemingly minor in the grand scheme of a multi-million-dollar CBA, highlights a deeper philosophical rift about the nature of the partnership. The WNBA's response to the February 16th proposal was swift and brutal. In a public statement, the league characterized the offer as unrealistic and warned
$160 million over the lifetime of the agreement. The previous plan would result in $700 million in losses over the course of the agreement. But again, since the owner's losing, players don't care. Give me my money. Since it's the owners losing, the players don't care. The union believed its revenue sharing model would still put the league in a profitable position, a separate source close to negotiation said, and called the league's projected loss figure absolutely false, citing a difference in whether expansion fees are factored into those calculations. Why are players owed expansion fees? Easy answer. They're not. Owners buy into the league. Existing owners lose shares of the league. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all of the support. Subscribe to the channel, that would mean so much to me.
That it would cause hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. According to league sources, the financial modeling on this latest proposal projected a staggering $460 million in cumulative losses over the lifetime of the agreement. While this was an improvement from the estimated $700 million in losses associated with the players' previous proposal, it still represented a financially catastrophic outcome from the owner's point of view. The argument is simple. Moving from catastrophic to terrible is not a win. It's just a less severe form of failure. The league and its owners, backed by the financial, muscle, and strategic guidance of the NBA, are keen to frame themselves as investors in the future of the league, not adversaries to its growth. They point to a series of significant concessions and improvements in their offer as evidence of their commitment. Explosive salary growth. The proposed max salary has been raised from a reported $800,000 in early discussions to over $2 million in year one. The median salary is projected to jump from approximately $113,000 just a few years ago to over $535,000. The minimum salary would also see a dramatic increase. Enhanced benefits and working conditions. The league has agreed to codify charter travel, a massive logistical and financial commitment that addresses a long-standing player safety and equity concern. They have also proposed significant increases to 401k contributions, created a recognition payment fund for retired players, and are standardizing team staffing requirements to ensure a baseline level of professional support across all franchises. Progressive family and health policies. Both sides have found common ground on several non-economic issues. They have agreed to a pregnant player trade consent clause, a proposal originating from the owners, limitations on marijuana testing, and increases to performance bonuses. These are tangible improvements that directly impact player welfare and reflect a modernized approach to athlete management. The owner's narrative is that they are making a colossal bet on the future of the WNBA. They are operating at a loss they project would be exacerbated by the players' demands because they and the NBA believe in the league's long-term potential. The $1.3 million max salary, the charter flights, the improved facilities, all of this, they argue, is an investment being made today for a payoff tomorrow. From their vantage point, the players are demanding a share of profits that do not yet exist, threatening the very investment that is fueling their salary increases. The $460 million question, expansion fees and financial transparency. The players' union vehemently disputes the league's financial projections. A source close to the negotiations dismissed the $460 million loss figure as absolutely false, pointing to a critical disagreement over accounting methodology. The core of the dispute revolves around expansion fees. In 2023, the Golden State Valkyries became the league's 13th franchise, paying a reported $50 million expansion fee. This money was paid by the new ownership group to the 12 existing team owners as compensation for diluting their share of future league-wide revenue. As the league expands further, these fees are expected to grow exponentially. The union argues that this expansion revenue should be factored into the league's total revenue picture. When included, they contend their proposed revenue-sharing model would actually put the league in a profitable position. They are, in essence, accusing the owners of cooking the books by excluding this influx of cash to paint a bleaker financial picture and justify a lower offer to the players. This brings us to the fundamental question posed in the commentary. Why would players be entitled to a share of expansion fees? The players' labor is what makes the league and its franchises valuable. When a new owner pays an expansion fee, they are paying for the right to own a piece of a league whose primary asset is its players. Without the players, the expansion fee is zero. The players' argument is that their labor has created the underlying value that makes the franchises worth owning, and therefore, they should share in the windfall when a new ownership group buys in. The owner's counter-argument is rooted in the traditional structure of sports finance. Expansion fees are a capital transaction between owners. They are the price paid for equity and are intended to compensate existing owners for the dilution of their ownership stake. Future revenue from the new team, which will be shared with the players, will be generated by that team's operations. To take a cut of the expansion fee on top of a guaranteed percentage of that future revenue is, in the owner's view, double dipping. They see it as the players demanding a share of the profits from the sale of a house they do not own, while also demanding a share of the rent that house will generate for years to come. This disagreement is not merely academic. It goes to the heart of how the two sides value the partnership. The players see themselves as true equity partners, co-authors of the league's success. The owners see them as essential employees, whose compensation should be tied to the operational performance of the business, not to transactions that fundamentally alter the ownership structure. From the vantage point of the WNBA, the narrative of the generous owner is a self-serving fiction. They view the current moment as a pivotal inflection point. After decades of fighting for basic recognition and equitable treatment, the league is experiencing an unprecedented surge in popularity, viewership, and cultural relevance, driven directly by the talent and star power of its players. The players argue that their ask is proportionate to the value they create. They see sellout crowds, skyrocketing TV ratings for games broadcast on major networks, and a cultural footprint that extends far beyond the court. Stars like Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson, and Sabrina Ionescu are not just athletes. They are marketable icons who drive merchandise sales, ticket demand, and media rights fees. The league's new media rights deal, negotiated as part of the NBA's package, is a massive windfall that will pour hundreds of millions of dollars into the league's coffers. The players believe they are entitled to a fair share of this new money. They point to the NBA's CBA, where players receive roughly 50% of basketball-related income, as a benchmark for what a true partnership should look like. While they acknowledge the WNBA's revenues are smaller, they argue the principle of a 50-over-50 split should be the ultimate goal, making their current demand for 27.5% a significant and patient concession. The players' extended silence following the league's December proposal was a strategic decision, but one that has been heavily criticized. The commentary in the provided transcript frames this delay as a sign of disinterest or distraction, noting that key player leaders were busy with other ventures like the Unrivaled League or media tours. However, the Players Association would likely characterize this period differently. Negotiating a CBA is an exhaustive process that requires immense preparation, legal review, and internal consensus building among a diverse group of players with varying career stages and financial priorities. The 2.5-month gap may have been necessary to ensure that the entire membership understood the implications of the proposal and to develop a counter that had unified support. That said, the timing of the February 16th submission was, without question, politically charged. By waiting until late February, the players put the league in a difficult position. With the 2025 season fast approaching, free agency drafts, training camps, and the regular season schedule all looming, the leverage shifted slightly. A delayed deal creates chaos for teams trying to plan rosters and budgets. The players' message, whether intentional or not, was clear. The urgency to get a deal done is now shared equally. Underpinning the entire negotiation is a deep-seated distrust of ownership's financial transparency. The players do not believe the league is losing as much money as the owners claim. The demand for a higher percentage of gross revenue rather than a net profit-sharing model, is a direct result of this skepticism. They want a fixed percentage of the top-line number, which is harder to manipulate, rather than trusting the owner's accounting of expenses. The dispute over expansion fees is a prime example. To the players, the owner's refusal to include that money in revenue calculations is a transparent attempt to suppress their compensation. They see the $50 million from the Valkyries and the even larger sums expected from future expansion to Portland, Toronto, and beyond as undeniable proof that the league's valuation is skyrocketing. They argue that the people creating that value deserve to participate in the upside. To be told, "You can't have a piece of that, that's just for us," while simultaneously being asked to accept a deal that the owners claim will lose money, is a bitter pill that the players refuse to swallow. Amidst the dueling press releases and conflicting financial projections, a cold, hard reality underpins the entire standoff. The balance of power is not equal. In a traditional labor dispute in a major sports league, a work stoppage is a financial nightmare for both sides. The NBA, NFL, and MLB lose billions in revenue, and players lose millions in salaries. The pressure to settle is immense and mutual. The WNBA operates in a fundamentally different economic reality. The WNBA, as a whole, is not yet a profitable enterprise. Its existence is strategically subsidized by the NBA, which views it as a long-term investment in growing the game of basketball and cultivating a new generation of fans. For the individual team owners, many of whom are billionaires and also own NBA franchises, the annual operating losses from their WNBA team are a relatively minor line item, a calculated cost of doing business within the larger NBA ecosystem. If the 2025 season were to be delayed or canceled due to a lockout or strike, what would be the financial consequence for an owner? They would not have to pay players' salaries, which are their single largest expense. They would forego ticket and concession revenue. But for a money-losing operation, the net financial impact of a canceled season might be surprisingly neutral or even beneficial in the short term. The long-term damage to fan goodwill and league momentum would be a concern, but the immediate fiscal pain would be far less than what a franchise in a profitable league would endure. For the players, the calculus is diametrically opposite. A lost season would be catastrophic. For the vast majority of players, their WNBA salary is their primary source of income. Many supplement this with overseas contracts during the off-season. But the WNBA paycheck is the financial bedrock of their careers. Zero income from their primary employer for a full year. Lost opportunity to build their personal brand and secure endorsement deals that are tied to their on-court performance. Stalled momentum in the prime of their careers, a devastating blow for athletes with relatively short professional lifespans. Damage to the league's growth, which directly impacts their future earning potential. A canceled season could squander the immense cultural gains of recent years, setting the league back a decade. This is the leverage that the owners hold, even if they never explicitly state it. They can afford to be patient. The players cannot. The union's bargaining power is derived from unity, star power, and public sentiment, not from the ability to inflict financial pain on the owners. The players need the season to happen far more than the owners do. This reality is what makes the owners' offers of $1.3 million max salaries while claiming to be losing money so significant. It suggests that the NBA is indeed forcing the investment, compelling owners to accept short-term losses for long-term gain. The players, sensing this investment mandate, are trying to push for as much as possible, believing that the owners' threats to hold the line are bluffs. The central question is, at what point does the NBA's strategic patience run out, and the owner's tolerance for losses harden into an immovable line in the sand? The WNBA is at a historic crossroads. It stands on the precipice of a new era, fueled by a talent explosion, surging popularity, and the institutional backing of the most powerful basketball league in the world. The negotiations for a new CBA are not merely a dispute over dollars and cents. They are a foundational debate about the identity and future of the league. The owners see themselves as venture capitalists, funding a startup in the hopes of a massive future return. They point to their unprecedented financial offers, salaries that dwarf anything in the history of women's team sports, as proof of their commitment. From their perspective, the players' demands for 27.5% of revenue, a housing stipend for millionaires, and a cut of expansion fees are unrealistic and threaten the fragile economic ecosystem they are trying to build. They ask for patience, for a recognition that the river of gold is still upstream. The players see themselves as the heart and soul of the product. They have carried the league for decades on their backs, playing for fractions of what their male counterparts make, often in substandard conditions. Now, as the league they built finally begins to reap the rewards of that labor, they are being told to wait. They are being asked to trust the accounting of owners who have a vested interest in minimizing their share. Their demand is simple: pay us what we are worth, right now, based on the value we are creating. We are not employees. We are the product. The path forward is narrow and fraught with peril. The league needs a deal before the 2025 season descends into chaos. The players need a deal that their membership can ratify as a just reward for their contribution. The owners need a deal that doesn't institutionalize losses for a generation. The coming weeks will reveal whether a compromise is possible. Can the players accept a revenue share in the high teens, trusting that future growth will make up the difference? Can the owners concede on including a portion of expansion fees in the revenue pool, acknowledging the players' role in creating franchise value? Can both sides move beyond the acrimony and distrust that has defined the last 16 months? The answer will determine not just the salary of a WNBA player in 2025, but the entire trajectory of women's professional basketball. A deal that both sides can live with, however imperfect, would cement a partnership and fuel a new golden age. A failure to find common ground, a work stoppage, or a bitter lockout would be a self-inflicted wound, squandering a once-in-a-generation opportunity and leaving the future of the league hanging in the balance. The clock is ticking, and the fate of the 2025 season and perhaps the league's hard-won momentum hangs in the balance. Stay locked in with my channel Simply Explained, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.